So Joe took little Gray home to Mary. In the next few days, they readied for the trip. Joe's concern for the trip only grew the closer it was for the day when they were to leave. They had made plans to travel with several other families that were heading in the same direction. However, it was a long trip, nearly 100 miles in all. Joe didn't know if Mary would be able to keep up the entire trip in her condition. The trip was dangerous, to say the least. If the bears and the lions were not concerns enough, when sleeping out in the open, there was gangs of bandits along the route as well. The day for them to leave was upon them, and as they made their final preparations, Joe noticed that Mary, while always pleasant, was especially excited for the trip. She could barely contain her enthusiasm. Joe remained steady, as he always did. He was focused clearly on the task at hand. Well, he knew what God's promise was because he'd heard the prophecy, but he never intended on being part of it. And now that he was even more determined to see it through. As he helped Mary upon little Gray, Joe quietly prayed for safe travels. The first day of the trip went real well. The trip to this point had been downhill or mostly flat. Mary continued to be upbeat and keep Joe on his toes. Little Gray, he was doing well and proving that Joe had made a wise choice by purchasing him. The next few days proved to be much harder. They had started the climb towards Bethlehem. Mary at this point was starting to tire. The baby seemed to be moving quite a bit more. Joe knew that no matter what kind of upbeat front Mary was putting on, the trip was starting to wear on her. Little Gray continued his steady pace towards Bethlehem, but Mary was having to stop and take breaks more and more often. They had started falling behind and would be the last to come into camp every night. This meant for a good portion of the latter part of the day, they would have to travel alone. The travel the last few days was increasingly more difficult, but Mary persisted and endured every obstacle. By the time they reached Bethlehem, Joe was certain that not only was Mary young and beautiful, but she was tough as nails.